A hometown hero is now accused of murder. This is brand new body camera video that was just released of the arrest of Avantae Williams. He's accused of shooting and killing a man in a bar in DeLand over the weekend.
Yeah, he told the judge that his family has been receiving death threats, not just now, but before he was even accused of this murder. Some of those family members were in court.
Avantae Williams was born in DeLand, Florida. He wasn't just another boy growing up in a small town. He was their pride, their rising star. By the time most kids were just learning the rules of football, Avantae was already outpacing everyone. On the field, coaches whispered about his speed. Neighbors clipped his photos from local newspapers. Teachers held their breath, hoping the fame wouldn't spoil him. In 8th grade, long before he'd even chosen a high school, big colleges were already calling. The University of Florida offered him a scholarship before he turned 14. That kind of thing didn't happen to kids from DeLand. But it happened to Avantae. By the time he reached high school, he wasn't just playing, he was dominating. His name was at the top of national lists. Recruiters watched his every move. ESPN called him one of the best in the country. People in town started saying he would be the one to make it out. The one who would change everything. His future looked like gold. But gold, when held too fast, can melt. Nobody knew then that the same hands catching touchdowns would one day fire a gun. Nobody knew that the same boy who ran past defenders would also run from police. The lights that once followed him to the field would soon light up his mugshot. This is not just a story of talent. It is a story of what happens when promise meets pressure, when hope turns into headlines, and when a hometown hero becomes the man everyone's afraid to talk about. It was a way out. His family didn't have much, but they had each other, and they had dreams. From the moment he could walk, he ran. From the moment he could run, he chased footballs. He didn't wait to be taught. He learned by doing. He watched older boys play and copied their every move until his moves became better than theirs. In his neighborhood, people started noticing. By age 10, he was already the fastest boy on the block. At 12, his hands were stronger than boys 3 years older. Coaches couldn't believe what they were seeing. He wasn't just gifted, he worked harder than anyone. Practices weren't enough. He trained after dark. He studied film when other kids were on video games. He played through bruises and pain. Because to him, football wasn't fun, it was survival. He entered high school as a local legend. Scouts from major universities lined the sidelines just to catch a glimpse. Recruiters shook their heads in disbelief. Some even said he reminded them of pro-level players, not in the future, but right then. He was named the #1 safety in the entire country by the time he finished high school. ESPN ranked him nationally. Colleges sent letters. Everyone wanted him, but with all the attention came a heavy weight. The world started treating him like a grown man, even though he was still just a boy. Expectations followed him everywhere. He was cheered, praised, and pushed. People didn't just want him to win games, they wanted him to save his town. By the time he committed to the University of Miami, people believed he was headed straight for the NFL. Nobody could see the storm building behind his smile. All they saw was the glory. No one stopped to ask what it was doing to the boy inside. College was supposed to be the next big chapter for Avantae. When he stepped onto the University of Miami campus, he wore the number 15 jersey like it was made for him. Fans cheered, cameras followed, and his name echoed across stadiums. But his first year didn't go as planned. Medical issues kept him off the field. He sat out the entire season watching others play the game he loved, feeling the spotlight begin to shift. When he finally returned, he made his mark. Sharp tackles, quick reads, flashes of the old brilliance. He reminded people why he had been so highly ranked. But behind the plays and the crowds, something was cracking. In 2021, everything changed. News broke that Avantae had been arrested. His ex-girlfriend, pregnant and scared, told police he had hurt her. The report said he had pulled her by the hair, thrown her to the ground and screamed for her to leave. She hit her head. She ran to a neighbor. She called for help. The story spread fast. Sports shows ran the headlines. Fans turned quiet. The team dropped him. Miami let go of their star. The boy, once praised for his power and speed, was now known for something darker, something violent. He said nothing to the cameras, covered his face with a blanket, walked out of jail with silence behind him. The dream that had followed him since childhood began to fall apart. After that, he transferred to the University of Maryland, but the magic didn't come back. He barely played. Just 3 tackles in the whole season. The crowds were smaller. The spotlight dimmed. People stopped mentioning his name in future draft talks. The boy who was once unstoppable was now stuck in a shadow of who he used to be. It wasn't just the arrest. It was everything. The pressure, the expectations, the mistakes that followed him like chains. Each choice pulled him further from the life he could have had. It was a Friday night at McCabe's bar in D-Land. The place was full, music playing, glasses clinking, people laughing. The kind of night that felt normal in a small town trying to forget its troubles. Around 40 people filled the room, packed close under soft bar lights, not knowing the night would end in blood. Avantae was there, not alone. He came with his friend Damon Ramsey. There was tension between them and another man, 32-year-old Keshad Harris, a local rapper. They weren't strangers. They had history. They were once just names passing in the same spaces until a woman stood between them, a woman that both sides knew. A woman whose presence had turned into rivalry, bruised pride, and sharp grudges. That night, Keshad came with friends. He laughed, tipped well, and moved from table to table, showing none of the weight he carried. But eyes followed him. Somewhere near the bar, words were exchanged. Then fists. Keshad punched Avantae in the jaw. Damon responded, a hit to the back of Keshad's head. Then Avantae pushed forward, not to fight, but to end it. He pulled a gun. The people nearby didn't move at first. They didn't understand. Not until the shots came, fast and violent. Avantae fired at Keshad, hitting him once, twice, again. Keshad tried to run, but Avantae chased, firing more. One witness would later say he passed the man as he shot, bullets striking him from behind. A woman near them, someone working nearby, and tried to break it up. She put her arms around Avantae, desperate to stop what was happening. She didn't get far. Bullets tore through her hands. Inside the bar, people screamed. Some dropped to the floor. Others ran out the back, hiding in supply rooms, crawling toward exits, shielding friends. Behind the bar, a bartender shook with fear, unsure where the bullets would land next. By the time the noise stopped, Keshad lay on the floor, bleeding from the chest. 6 bullets had torn through his body. A 7th one had missed, found later in the parking lot. His friends tried to save him, pressing on wounds, calling out his name. But when the ambulance arrived, it was too late. Keshad Harris was pronounced dead at the hospital. Avantae and Damon were gone. They disappeared before police arrived. No one knew where they went. But the silence they left behind screamed loud, louder than the music, louder than the gunfire. It was the sound of a promising life breaking in two, and the end of another. The news spread fast. By morning, the streets of DeLand were whispering. Some people couldn't believe it. Others weren't surprised. A man was dead. A woman was wounded. And Avantae Williams, the boy once called a hero, was missing. Police sealed off McCabe's bar. Yellow tape waved in the wind. Inside, blood stained the floor. Outside, reporters gathered with cameras, asking questions no one had answers to. The town wasn't just in shock. It was grieving, confused, and waiting. Detectives moved quickly. They watched the bar's security footage. They spoke to witnesses. They followed trails of fear and silence. One clue led to another. Then they found something strange, a phone. Avantae's phone, left behind in the chaos. They issued a warrant for his arrest. For 2 days there was no trace of him. No word, no sign, just silence. Then came the body cam footage. Officers found him downtown. He didn't run this time. He didn't fight. He stood still while they cuffed his hands. His face looked tired. The same hands that once held footballs now gripped steel. The town watched the footage, some with anger, some with heartbreak, some just shook their heads. They remembered the boy who ran through high school fields like he was meant for more. Now he was being walked into jail. The police chief stood before cameras and said what many were thinking, that bringing a gun to a fistfight was never the answer, that a moment of rage had stolen a life, that justice, no matter how slow, would come. But for many in the community, justice felt heavy, because they had lost 2 sons that night, one to death and one to the choices that can never be undone. Keshad Harris was 32. To some, he was just another face in the crowd. But to those who knew him, he was the spark in the room. He had a quiet strength, a wide smile, and a dream bigger than the city he lived in. Music was his way out, not just for himself, but for the people he loved. He was a rapper, not famous, not yet, but he was working hard, recording tracks, performing at local shows, building a name. His lyrics were raw, real. He rapped about loyalty, pain, and the streets he was trying to rise above. People believed in him because he believed in himself. They called him a fighter, not with fists but with words. At McCabe's he wasn't looking for trouble. He was with friends, buying drinks, keeping to himself. He didn't know the night would be his last. He didn't know that someone's grudge, someone's pride, would end everything in a flash. After he was killed, his name filled the air, on murals, in songs, at candlelight vigils. His mother cried through every interview. His friends told stories about his kindness. Bartenders remembered his laugh and how he tipped without showing off. But none of that could bring him back. The community didn't just lose a man. They lost potential. They lost light. They lost a voice that had something to say. Now, his songs live online, reminders of what could have been. And in every corner of DeLand, his absence hangs heavy, like a storm that never fully passes.
Now he's in the Volusia County Jail, accused of shooting and killing a man named Keshad Harris in a DeLand bar over the weekend. The two seem to have known each other in some capacity. Harris's girlfriend says they were at the same graduation ceremony just before the shooting, and police say Williams looked Harris up on Instagram that night too. The two started fighting immediately when they walked up to each other, according to his arrest affidavit, for someone facing criminal charges to speak up at their first appearance. But Avantae Williams asked the judge for help.
My whole family has been receiving death threats, a lot of them, and I just would like for you guys to protect them.
This is not the first time Fox 35's cameras have pointed at Avantae Williams.
I work hard. I'm a good student in the classroom.
We interviewed him when he was in the 8th grade and got an offer to play football for the University of Florida. It says Williams pulled out a gun. Harris tried to run away. Williams shot him.
As a stage your ground or a self-defense type of argument?
I can appreciate your arguments, Mr. Dempsey. The reality is the enemy found 7 gunshot wounds, and the police report references gunshot wounds in the back and while the victim is down.
Harris's mother broke down in tears when the judge said that. Williams could face life in prison for this. The mandatory minimum, if he's convicted, is 25 years behind bars. And he is probably not the only one who will be getting in trouble for this alleged shooting. Police say some of the people he was hanging out with that night were on felony probation and will likely go back to prison because of this. Live in Volusia County, Marie Edinger, Fox 35 News.
Thanks, Marie.
After the shooting at McCabe's bar, the investigation moved quickly. Police reviewed security footage, spoke to witnesses, and gathered evidence. They identified Avantae Williams as the suspect. On May 5, 2025, officers arrested him without incident. He was charged with second-degree murder for the death of 32-year-old Keshod Harris and is currently being held without bond at the Volusia County Jail. The case remains open and active. Detectives continue to collect evidence and conduct interviews. Approximately 40 patrons were inside McCabe's bar on the night of the incident, and authorities are urging anyone with information to come forward. This is not Williams' first encounter with the law. In 2021, he was arrested on charges of aggravated battery of a pregnant woman, leading to his dismissal from the University of Miami football team. The charges were later dropped, and he was reinstated after serving a 6-game suspension. In 2023, he faced charges of burglary, robbery, aggravated battery with a firearm, and petty theft in Orange County. The battery charges were dropped, and he pleaded no contest to petty theft. As the legal process unfolds, the community watches closely, seeking justice for Keshod Harris and answers about how a promising athlete's life took such a tragic turn. Across the country, boys lace up their cleats every weekend, chasing the dream of football, the roar of crowds, the shine of trophies, the promise of a better life. For many, like Avantae once was, football is more than a game. It's a way out of struggle, a way into something bigger than themselves. But dreams that grow too fast can collapse without warning. Young athletes are often pushed too hard, too soon. Fame finds them before maturity does. Expectations rise, but guidance doesn't always follow. For every touchdown, there's a pressure to perform, to protect an image, to stay strong even when life off the field is falling apart. Violence isn't always born in one moment. Sometimes it builds from poor decisions, unchecked anger, lack of support, and silence. What happened at McCabe's wasn't just about a fight. It was about pride, pain, and the failure of systems meant to protect both the gifted and the grieving. Now, youth coaches hold longer talks after practice. Counselors revisit old cases. Communities ask harder questions. How do we protect our boys, not just from others, but from themselves? The loss of Keshod Harris and the downfall of Avantae Williams are now part of that conversation, not just as a story of tragedy, but as a reminder that behind every jersey is a person. And without care, that person can be forgotten long. Before they fall, a man lost his life, another lost his future. Families are left with grief, and a community is left with questions. Keshod Harris is gone, a son, a friend, a voice silenced too soon. Avantae Williams, once a symbol of hope, now sits behind bars. 2 lives forever changed by a moment that can never be undone. This wasn't just about a bar fight. It was about choices, consequences, and the unseen weight so many young people carry. Only one truth remains. It didn't have to end this way. Let this story be a wake-up call. Support the kids chasing dreams. Speak up before anger becomes action. Create space for help, for healing, for change, because one tragedy is already too many.